You made it here for a reason. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't idle curiosity. You made it here because something inside you is tired. Tired of reacting. Tired of feeling small in front of situations you never asked for. Tired of letting the words of the wrong people live longer inside your head than they ever deserved. Maybe you looked in the mirror recently and didn't fully recognize the person staring back. Maybe you've begun to feel that life has been quietly shaping you through fear, through the need for approval, through the weight of everything that went wrong and that you still carry without even noticing. You wake up and it's already there. You go to sleep and it's still there. A low, constant hum underneath everything you do. That has a name. The Stoics called it inner weakness. Not the weakness of the body, not the number you can lift or the miles you can run. The weakness of a mind that lets the outside world decide how it feels. A mind that hands the controls to a stranger's mood, to a comment, to a memory, to a fear of what might happen and probably never will. And here is the first mercy of this night. There is a cure, not a fast one, not an easy one, not a trick you apply on Monday and forget by Friday, but a real one. A cure that has survived for 2,000 years precisely because it works and because most people are too afraid to swallow it. Tonight you're going to meet 12 truths that the Stoics spent entire lifetimes learning. Truths that sit uncomfortably. Truths that bruise the ego. Truths that dismantle, one by one, the illusion that you need the world to be whole. These are not gentle affirmations. They are closer to surgery. They cut because what they remove is the thing that has been slowly poisoning you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still wrote to himself every morning like a man trying not to drown. Seneca advised the most dangerous man in Rome and still lost everything. Epictetus was born a slave, in chains, owned by another man, and became freer than the emperor who could have had him killed. These were not soft men living easy lives, handing out comfortable advice. They were people who had been broken in every way a person can be broken, and who found underneath the wreckage something that could not be touched. That something is what we're after tonight, so don't rush. This isn't content to consume on the way to the next thing. Let the room go dark. Let your shoulders drop. Let the noise of the day fall away for 1 hour, maybe 2. You've given your attention to 1,000 things that took from you. Give it just this once to something that intends to give back. Because what comes next can change the way you face everything. Not by adding more to your life, but by removing the lie you've been carrying. And when that lie is gone, you'll be surprised how much of the weight was never real to begin with. Stay. Breathe. Let's walk into the shadow together. Before we begin, understand where this philosophy actually comes from, because the origin tells you everything about what it's for. Stoicism was not born in comfort. It was not dreamed up by a wealthy man reclining in a garden with nothing to lose. It was born from a catastrophe. Around 300 years before Christ, there was a merchant named Zeno, a wealthy trader in expensive purple dye, sailing his fortune across the Mediterranean, and one day, his ship went down. Everything he owned, his entire livelihood, the whole identity he had built as a successful man, vanished into the sea in a single afternoon. He washed up in Athens with nothing, ruined, the kind of ruin that ends men, that sends them into bitterness or the bottom of a cup for the rest of their days. And Zeno, wandering the wreckage of his own life, drifted into a bookshop. He began reading about Socrates. Something in those pages caught fire in him. He asked the bookseller where he could find a man like that, a man who lived by wisdom rather than by fortune. And he stopped washing his hands of the shipwreck and started building a philosophy on top of it. Years later, having become a teacher himself, he said something that should be carved into the wall of every person who has ever lost everything. I made a prosperous voyage when I was shipwrecked. Read that again. The disaster was the doorway. The loss of everything external forced him to discover what was internal and unbreakable, and his alone. That is where this entire tradition begins. Not in a life without storms, in a shipwreck, which means it was built from the first stone for exactly the kind of night you might be having right now. The first truth is the hardest to accept and the most liberating once you do. You control almost nothing. And that is not a sentence of despair. It is the beginning of your freedom. Epictetus was born a slave, not as a metaphor, not as a figure of speech that philosophers use to sound profound. He was the legal property of another human being in the Roman Empire for the first decades of his life. He did not choose where he slept. He did not choose what he ate. He did not choose whether he could walk out of a door. There is a story, whether it is literally true or not, that has followed him for centuries, that his master, in a fit of cruelty, twisted his leg. Epictetus, calm, said only, "If you keep going, you will break it." The master kept going. The leg broke. And Epictetus, without raising his voice, said, "There, I told you it would break." He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Now sit with that. A man who could be beaten, sold, maimed at another person's whim. A man who owned nothing, not even his own body in the eyes of the law. And yet, this man became one of the most powerful teachers in human history, quoted by emperors and generals and prisoners of war, because he had discovered something that most free people never discover in a lifetime of comfort. No one can enslave your mind without your permission. The first brutal truth of Stoicism is this: you do not control what happens to you. You do not control what people think of you. You do not control the past. You do not control the weather, the economy, the traffic, the health of your own body, the choices of the people you love, whether the phone rings, whether the message comes, whether the door that closed will ever open again. All of that lives outside the fence of your power. And the moment you understand that, a war ends. The war you've been losing your whole life without ever knowing you were fighting it. You control exactly two things: your judgments and your actions. What you decide something means and what you choose to do about it. That is the entire territory of your power. It is small. It is smaller than you want it to be. But it is absolute. Inside that fence, no one can touch you. Think about how much of your energy goes to the other side of that fence. You lie awake trying to control what someone already thinks of you, as if you could reach into their skull and rearrange it. You rehearse arguments with people who aren't in the room. You brace for weeks against a disaster that never comes, and then a different one comes that you never saw. You try to manage the impression, the outcome, the reaction, the future, and you wake up exhausted, having lifted nothing but air. And here is what happens when you stop, when you finally let go of what was never yours to hold. The mind goes quiet. The weight lifts off your chest. You breathe deeply for the first time in what feels like years. Not because the problem disappeared, but because you finally set down the half of it that was never yours to carry. The Stoics had an image for this: a dog tied to a moving cart. The dog can trot calmly behind the cart, or it can dig in its heels and be dragged. The cart moves either way. The rope does not care about the dog's opinion. Wisdom is not cutting the rope, because you cannot cut it. Wisdom is choosing to walk. The Stoics had another image for this, and it may be the most useful thing you take from this entire hour. Picture an archer, a master archer, drawing back the bow. Everything within his power he controls completely. The steadiness of his hand, the discipline of his training, the quality of his aim, the choice of the moment to release. He pours all of his skill into those things, because those things are his. And then he lets the arrow fly. And in that instant, the arrow passes out of his control forever. A gust of wind may take it. The target may move. Something may cross the field that he could never have predicted. And here is the wisdom that took the Stoics a lifetime to master. The archer's success is not whether the arrow hits. His success is whether he aimed well. Because the hitting was never fully his, only the aiming was. Live your life like that archer. Do everything in your power with total dedication, and then release your grip on the outcome, because the outcome was never in your hands to begin with. You prepare for the interview with everything you have. That is the aim. Whether they hire you, Depends on 100 things happening in rooms you'll never see. That is the wind. You love the person fully, honestly, with everything you are. That is the aim. Whether they stay is theirs to decide, not yours. That is the flight of the arrow. Give everything to the draw of the bow. Give nothing to the anxiety over where the wind takes what has already left your hands. That is not detachment. It is the deepest kind of engagement, freed at last from the poison of trying to control the uncontrollable. Weakness is born from the illusion of control. Strength is born from knowing exactly where your power begins and exactly where it ends, and pouring everything you have into that small, unshakable territory and nothing into the rest. So write this somewhere you can see it, on your mirror, on your phone, on the inside of your own mind. I control my response. I do not control the rest. Say it when the message doesn't come. Say it when the plan falls apart. Say it when the person you counted on lets you down. I control my response. I do not control the rest. That single sentence, lived and not just read, is the foundation everything else is built on. The second truth follows the first like a shadow follows a body. Your emotions are not you, they are visitors. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, the single most powerful human being in the known world. If any man in history had the right to be ruled by his moods, to indulge every impulse, to let his anger become law, it was him. He could have anyone punished. He could have anything he wanted. And every single morning, before he made one decision of state, before the generals and the senators and the endless demands of an empire, he sat down and he wrote. To himself, not for publication, not for glory. He never intended anyone to read it. What we now call the Meditations, one of the most treasured books ever written, was never a book at all. It was the private journal of a man fighting his own emotions every day of his life. In it, he scolds himself. He reminds himself over and over of the same lessons because he kept forgetting them, the way you and I keep forgetting them. He writes like a man trying to talk himself off a ledge. The most powerful man alive, whispering to himself in the dark. You have power over your mind, not over outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Sit with the humanity of that. It means the anger you feel is not a flaw in you that the great man escaped. Marcus felt it too. He simply learned not to obey it. The second brutal truth is this. The emotion you feel right now, the anger, the anxiety, the grief, the jealousy, the shame, is not who you are. It is something moving through you. It arrives. It peaks. It passes. It has a lifespan, and that lifespan is far shorter than you think, unless you feed it. The weak mind fuses with every emotion that arrives. It gets angry, and it becomes the anger. It feels fear, and it becomes the fear. There is no space between the person and the feeling. So the feeling drives, and the person is dragged along in the passenger seat, watching their own life crash. The strong mind watches the emotion the way you watch a cloud cross the sky. It appears, it moves, it dissolves. And the sky, the vast quiet thing behind it, does not change. Clouds do not damage the sky. Storms do not damage the sky. The sky holds all of it and remains the sky. You are not the storm. You are the space in which the storm happens. There is more power in that image than in any technique, because the goal was never to stop feeling. A person who feels nothing is not strong. They are numb, and numbness is its own kind of death. The goal is to feel the thing fully and still not be commanded by it, to let the wave rise inside you and to keep both hands on the wheel while it does. There is a small shift in language that changes everything here. When the next hard emotion arrives, don't say I am angry, say I am noticing anger move through me. Don't say I am afraid, say there is fear here and I am watching it. It sounds like a small thing, almost silly. It is not. I am angry is a prison, because it says the anger and you are the same. and there is no door out of yourself. I am watching anger pass through me is a window, because it puts you here, and the anger over there, and reminds you that one of you is temporary, and it is not you. Practice this when the stakes are low, so that it's available to you when the stakes are high. Notice irritation in traffic. Notice impatience in a line. Name it, watch it, let it pass. You are training the single most important muscle a human being can build. The muscle that sits in the gap between what you feel and what you do. Because in that gap lives everything. Your dignity, your relationships, your entire future. The third truth is one you already suspect, but have been too afraid to fully believe. The opinion of other people is a slow poison, and you have been drinking it your whole life. Seneca wrote something that cuts to the bone. He said, "It is wretched to be unable to bear misfortune, but even more wretched to be unable to bear good fortune." Read that again. He is saying that some people cannot even hold happiness, because the moment they have it, they start checking whether they're allowed to, whether other people approve, whether they've been given permission to feel good about their own life. There is a silent cycle that hollows people out from the inside, and almost no one notices they're trapped in it. You do something, you wait for approval, you get it or you don't, and your peace rises or falls on that result. You post the thing and you watch the number. You say the thing in the meeting and you scan the faces. You make the choice and then you wait, anxious, to find out from someone else whether it was the right one. Your inner state has an outsourced thermostat, and the dial is in other people's hands. That is voluntary slavery. The Stoics used exactly that word. Slavery you walk into willingly, every day, and even thank people for. The third brutal truth is this. Every time you act to earn someone's approval, you hand that person a piece of your power. And the more people you try to please, the more fragments of yourself you give away, until there is almost nothing left that belongs to you. You become a mirror that only shows other people what they want to see, and mirrors have no life of their own. The Stoics called this living by the opinion of the crowd. And they warned that it was the surest way to never truly live at all, because the crowd is fickle. The crowd forgets you the moment you leave the room. The crowd cheered for men one year and killed them the next. To build your peace on the approval of the crowd is to build your house on the surface of the sea. Now, this does not mean cruelty. It does not mean you stop caring about anyone, that you become cold and closed and indifferent to the people who matter. That is not strength. That is just a different wound wearing armor. It means something more precise. It means your peace cannot depend on a like, on a compliment, on a well done that may never come from the person you're still, after all these years, trying to earn it from. Some of you are still performing for someone who isn't even watching anymore. A parent whose approval you chased so long that chasing it became who you are, even now, even when they're gone or gone from your life. You are running a race on an empty track, exhausting yourself for a judge who left the stands years ago. You are enough before anyone confirms it. Read that slowly. You are enough before the message comes, before the praise, before the promotion, before the person finally sees you the way you've been begging to be seen. The confirmation you're waiting for was never going to complete you, because the hole it was meant to fill was never on the outside. Stop waiting for the world to sign a permission slip for your own worth. It isn't coming, and you don't need it. You never did. The fourth truth is one that fear will beg you to skip. The pain you avoid is the pain that governs you. There is a Stoic practice with a heavy Latin name, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, the deliberate rehearsal of misfortune. It sounds morbid. It sounds like exactly the kind of thing an anxious mind should never do. And it is the opposite of what you'd expect. The Stoics would sit deliberately in the quiet and imagine everything that could go wrong. The loss of the job, the illness, the betrayal, the rejection, the death of the people they loved most. They would walk, in their minds, straight into the disasters they feared, not to torture themselves, not to marinate in dread, to prepare, to meet the enemy in the practice yard so that they would not meet it for the first time on the battlefield. The fourth brutal truth is this: the pain you never face in your imagination ambushes you in real life. And when it ambushes you unprepared, it does not just hurt, it destroys. It knocks you flat because you built your whole sense of safety on the silent assumption that it would never happen. But the pain you have already visited calmly with your eyes open loses its power to paralyze you. You have already stood in that room. You already know you can breathe there. Let me show you how the practice actually works so it stops being an idea and becomes a tool you can hold. Tonight or tomorrow, in a quiet moment, sit down. Choose the fear you avoid most, the one you flinch away from every time it approaches the edge of your thoughts, and then deliberately walk toward it. Suppose it happens. Suppose the worst version arrives. Don't skim the surface of it in retreat. Go in. What would the first day be like? Who would you tell? What would the morning after feel like? What would you actually have to do? Follow it all the way down, past the initial wave of dread, into the strange flat country on the far side of it, and notice what you find there, because almost always, past the terror of the idea, there is a person still standing, you, diminished, grieving, changed, but breathing, making coffee, answering the necessary questions, doing the next small thing that has to be done. The Stoics found, and you will find, that the catastrophe imagined fully is almost never as annihilating as the catastrophe imagined halfway and then fled from. The half-imagined fear is a shadow on the wall, enormous and shapeless. The fully imagined fear has edges, and a thing with edges is a thing you can survive. This is not pessimism. This is rehearsal. The general who has war-gamed the ambush does not panic when the ambush comes. The mind that has already walked through the loss does not shatter when the loss arrives. You are not inviting the disaster by looking at it. You are removing its power to destroy you, quietly, in advance, in the safety of your own imagination, where it costs you nothing and gives you everything. Think about how you actually live. You spend enormous energy not thinking about the things you fear. You change the subject in your own mind. You reach for the phone the instant a dark thought appears. You keep yourself busy, loud, distracted. Anything to avoid sitting alone with the shape of what you dread. And so the fear grows, the way anything grows in the dark, unexamined, unmeasured, feeding on your refusal to look at it. The monster under the bed is always bigger when you refuse to turn on the light. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what your own life has already proven, if you are honest enough to admit it. You have already survived things you swore you could not survive. Go back. Find the moment, the one where everything came apart, where the ground fell away and you were certain, absolutely certain, that this was the thing that would end you, the diagnosis, the empty side of the bed, the day the whole plan collapsed. You remember thinking, I cannot live through this. And yet, here you are, breathing, listening, alive. You lived through the very thing you were sure would kill you. Not because it wasn't as bad as you feared, but because you were stronger than you knew, and you only found that out on the other side. Weakness runs from pain. It builds a whole life around the avoidance of one particular ache and calls that life safety, when it is really just a smaller cage. Strength sits down with the pain, looks it in the eyes, and asks a question weakness never dares to ask. What did you come to teach me? Because pain, faced deliberately, is one of the greatest teachers a human being will ever have. And pain, avoided endlessly, becomes the quiet tyrant that runs your entire life from the shadows. The fifth truth is the one that will make you most uncomfortable, because it takes away your favorite excuse. What you tolerate, you are choosing. This is the truth that closes the exits. Every toxic relationship that remains in your life, you are tolerating. Every habit that weakens you, that you return to knowing exactly what it costs, you are choosing. Every self-destructive thought you feed at 2 in the morning, replaying your own failures like a prosecutor building a case against yourself, you are cultivating, watering, keeping alive. Epictetus said it with brutal simplicity. First tell yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. First decide who you are, then act like it in the small invisible moments where no one is watching and it would be so easy not to. The fifth brutal truth is this: there is no permanent victim position for a person who has become conscious. And that is a heavy thing to hear, so let me be careful with it. Things happen to you that you did not choose. Real things, cruel things, things that were not your fault in any way. The child does not choose the home they're born into. The betrayed does not choose the betrayal. To say otherwise would be a lie, and this channel does not deal in comfortable lies. But consciousness changes the equation from that moment forward, because with consciousness comes responsibility. Not responsibility for what happened to you, responsibility for what you do with what happened to you. And that is the line that divides two kinds of people, not the ones who were hurt and the ones who weren't, because everyone was hurt. The ones who stayed in the wound and the ones who walked out of it carrying what it taught them. You may not have chosen what happened to you, but you choose every single day what to do with what happened to you. You choose whether today is another day of rehearsing the injury or the first day of building something on top of it. That choice is yours, and it was always yours, and no one, no matter what they took from you, can take that. Tolerating is not the same as patience. We confuse them constantly. Patience is a strength. It is the calm endurance of what must be endured while it changes, while it grows, while it heals. But tolerating what is actively destroying you is not patience. It is a slow surrender of yourself, one small permission at a time. It is you quietly agreeing to disappear and calling it keeping the peace. So sit with the hardest question in this entire hour. What are you tolerating today that you already know you shouldn't be? You know the answer. You knew it before I finished the sentence. It has a face, or a name, or a bottle, or a habit, or a voice in your own head. You've known for a long time. The only question that remains is how much longer you call your surrender by the name of patience. The sixth truth steals a thief. Comparison is the theft of your own life. Marcus Aurelius governed Rome surrounded by men who had more of everything. Generals with more glory, senators with more money, gladiators with more raw strength, philosophers, arguably, with sharper minds. If comparison were a path to greatness, the most powerful man in the world had endless opportunities to walk it, and he refused. He did not govern by looking sideways. He governed by looking inward. Again and again in his private journal, he pulls his own gaze back from other men and returns it to the only place it belongs: himself, his own conduct, his own character in this moment. The sixth brutal truth is this: every time you compare your life to someone else's, you abandon the only place where your transformation can actually happen, the present moment of your own existence. You cannot grow in someone else's life. You can only grow in yours. And every second you spend measuring yourself against them is a second stolen from the one life you were actually given to live. The world you live in was engineered for this theft. The Stoics had the crowd in the marketplace. You have an infinite marketplace in your pocket, running all day and half the night, precisely designed to make you feel that everyone is arriving sooner, living better, winning more. You know intellectually that you're watching a highlight reel, that the person in the photo has their own 3 in the morning, their own silent pain, their own war with the past. You know it. And it doesn't help, because comparison doesn't happen in the part of the mind that knows things. It happens underneath, in the old animal part that counts and ranks and never rests. And while your eyes are on someone else's life, yours is passing, unwatched, unlived. The years you'll one day age to have back are going by right now while you scroll through evidence that you're behind. Behind whom? On what road? Measured by whose clock? The whole race is invented, and you're exhausting yourself running it against ghosts. The Stoic does not compare. The Stoic measures. And there is a world of difference between the two. To compare is to hold yourself against another person over whom you have no power and whose real life you cannot even see. To measure is to hold yourself against yourself, yesterday's self, and to ask one clean question. Was I more just today than yesterday? More courageous? More honest? More awake? That is a race you can actually win. It is the only race that was ever really yours, and the finish line moves with you every day for the rest of your life. The seventh truth hands you back a power you've been giving away for free. You do not have to react. You can choose to respond. There is a space between what happens to you and what you do about it. A gap. Sometimes it lasts a full second. Sometimes only a fraction of one. But it is always there, and in that gap lives the whole of your freedom. Everything the Stoics taught, in a sense, was the art of widening that gap, of building enough room inside it to turn around, to breathe, to choose, instead of being flung straight from event to reaction like a puppet on a string. Picture the moment an insult lands. The instinct fires instantly. Attack. The wounded ego says, defend, retaliate, prove them wrong right now. The whole body leans into it. And the Stoic, in that same instant, does one thing that changes the entire outcome. Pause. Not weakness. Not swallowing it. Not pretending it didn't happen. A pause. A single breath of space, deliberately held open, inside which the reaction loses its automatic power over you. The seventh brutal truth is this: the people who provoke you, who disrespect you, who try to steal your peace, only have that power if you hand it to them. The insult itself is just sound, just symbols on a screen. It has no power to wound you until you pick it up, carry it inside, and stab yourself with it repeatedly for the next 3 days. And that part, the carrying, the repeating, the stabbing, is done entirely by you. Seneca saw this with terrible clarity. He wrote that the injury and the being upset by the injury are two different things, and the second is far more harmful than the first. Think about the last time someone truly got under your skin. By now, they've almost certainly moved on. They said their thing, felt their moment of power, and forgot about it before dinner. And you carried it for days. You replayed it in the shower. You composed the perfect reply at midnight. You let it curdle your mood, poison your sleep, follow you into rooms that had nothing to do with it. They struck once. You struck yourself 100 times, and then you blamed them for the bruises. Responding is power. Reacting is surrender. When you react, you are being operated by remote control, and the remote is in someone else's hand, usually the hand of the person you like least. Every button they push, you obey. But when you respond, when you hold that gap open and choose, from your own values, what this moment deserves, you take the remote back. You become the one thing they cannot stand and cannot manipulate. A person who will not dance to their music. The next time someone reaches for that remote, remember, the gap is yours. What you do inside it is your character, made visible. Let them push the button and find that nothing happens. There is no deeper defeat you can hand a person who wanted to control you than to remain completely in control of yourself. The eighth truth is the one we spend our whole lives refusing to look at. Everything you love, you will one day lose. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. 2 words the Stoics kept close like a stone in a pocket, not to sink under, but to stay awake. There's a story that Roman generals, riding through the city in triumph, crowds roaring, glory at its absolute peak, kept a servant behind them whose only job was to lean in and whisper, again and again, remember, you are mortal. At the highest moment a human being can reach, a voice in the ear reminding him it ends. The Stoics did not speak of death to depress, they spoke of it to wake. Because a life lived in the pretenses that it will go on forever is a life spent carelessly, endlessly postponing, saving the good wine for an occasion that never quite arrives. And a life lived with death honestly in view becomes almost unbearably vivid. Every ordinary thing turns luminous once you remember it is temporary. The eighth brutal truth is this: precisely because everything is passing, everything has absolute value right now. The conversation you keep putting off, the embrace you could have given and held a second longer, the forgiveness you clutch like a weapon, telling yourself you're punishing them when the only person it weighs on is you, the call you'll make soon, the words you assume there will always be time to say. There will not always be time. That is the whole and terrible point. These men knew loss in their bones. Marcus Aurelius buried children. Several of them. The most powerful man in the world, powerless before the smallest coffins. Seneca lost his fortune, his standing, and finally his life, ordered to die by the emperor he had served. Epictetus lost his freedom, his body's wholeness. Everything a person is told makes life worth living. And they all arrived at the same conclusion: from inside real grief, not from a comfortable armchair. The suffering they found does not come from the loss itself. It comes from the attachment to the idea of permanence. From the quiet, unspoken belief that this person, this season, this version of your life was supposed to last, was owed to you, was a possession rather than a loan. When you truly accept that everything you have is borrowed, that the people you love were never yours to keep, but only yours to walk beside for a while, something changes at the root. You stop wasting the present clawing at what was always temporary. You stop taking tomorrow as a promise. You start actually being here, with the people who are still here, while they are still here. Do not let this be an abstract idea that dissolves the moment the video ends. Make it concrete tonight. There is someone you love whose voice you have not heard in too long. There is a thing you've been meaning to say. Memento Mori is not a meditation on the far-off future. It is a knife that cuts through your procrastination right now and asks, if it ends sooner than you assume it, and one day it will, did you say it? Did you mean it? Or did you assume it like everyone assumes that there would always be more time? The ninth truth exposes a disguise that fear loves to wear. Weakness often dresses itself as sensitivity. This one must be handled carefully because it is easy to twist into cruelty, and cruelty is not the point. So hear the whole of it. To feel deeply is human. It is not a defect. The Stoics were not the cold, unfeeling statues that later ages made them out to be. That is a caricature and a lazy one. Marcus wept at the death of those he loved and did not apologize for it. Seneca wrote about love and grief with a tenderness few have matched. These men felt everything. What they refused to do was be commended by the feeling. That distinction is the whole of this truth. The ninth brutal truth is this: when you use your sensitivity as the reason you cannot act, cannot grow, cannot take responsibility, you have taken something genuinely good and turned it into the bars of your own cage. I'm too sensitive for that. I can't handle confrontation. That's just how I am. I feel things too much. Sometimes that is honest self-knowledge. And sometimes, if you're willing to be ruthless with yourself, it is fear wearing the respectable clothing of sensitivity, so that no one, least of all you, will call it what it is. Because sensitivity is real, and it is often called an excuse when it shouldn't be. So the test is not whether you feel. The test is what the feeling produces. There are three possibilities, and you already know which one is yours. To feel little, to move through life half numb, armored, untouched, is not strength. It is anesthesia. It is a smaller death that mistakes itself for control. Do not aim there. To feel deeply and be paralyzed by it, to let every strong emotion become a locked door you cannot walk through, is the pattern that needs work. Not shame. Work. It is not a life sentence. It is a muscle that has not yet been trained. And to feel everything, the full weight of it, the grief and the fear and the love and the rage, and to move anyway, to act while your hands are shaking, to keep walking while it hurts, that is strength. That is the whole of it, not the absence of feeling, the presence of feeling and the refusal to be stopped by it. So the question is not, how do I stop being sensitive? You don't want to stop. Your depth of feeling is a gift when it moves you. The question is, where have I been using my sensitivity as permission to stay small? Find that place. It's specific. There is a conversation you won't have, a change you won't make, a stand you won't take, and you've been filing it all under, I'm just too sensitive. Feel it all, and do it anyway. The 10th truth is one that lands like a verdict, because it is one. You are the product of your habits, not your intentions. How many times have you said, I'm going to change, meant it, truly meant it, with your whole chest, in a moment of clarity or pain or resolve? And how many times did the intention burn bright and the result never come? The gap between the two is where most human lives are quietly lost, not in a single dramatic failure, but in the slow, silent distance between what we sincerely intended and what we actually repeatedly did. The 10th brutal truth is this: intention without action is just a thought that is ashamed of itself. It dresses up as progress. It feels like progress. Deciding to change gives you a small hit of the same satisfaction that actually changing would, which is precisely the trap, because the feeling of resolve quietly substitutes for the act of doing, and you walk away lighter, having done nothing at all. You confuse the map for the journey and wonder why you never arrive. Epictetus cut straight through it. Do not, he said, tell people you are a philosopher. Do not announce your principles. Show them by how you live. Don't tell me you've changed. Don't post about the new you. Show me in the small choice at 6 in the morning when the alarm goes off and everything in you wants to stay down. Show me in the moment of anger when you could explode and no one would blame you, and you choose instead to pause. Show me in the tiny, unwitnessed decisions that no one will ever praise you for, because those decisions, repeated, are who you actually are. Stoicism was never a philosophy to be admired from a distance. It was never meant to be a beautiful idea you nod along to and set back on the shelf. It is a practice, a thing you do with your hands and your feet in your unremarkable Tuesday. The Stoics were not writing theory. They were writing training manuals for the self, to be applied in the friction of an ordinary day, which is the only place a life is ever actually built. And here is the part that should light a fire under you tonight. The person you are becoming now, not tomorrow. Not when the situation improves. Not when you finally feel ready or motivated, or when the stars align and conditions are perfect. Every action you take today is a vote for the kind of person you're turning into, and you are casting those votes constantly, whether you're paying attention or not. The habit you feed right now, in the next hour, after this video ends, is a brick in the person you'll be a year from now. So the only question that matters is not what you intend to become. It is what you are actually about to do. The 11th truth reveals a power almost no one can hold. Silence is a form of strength that few people can bear. The world is terrified of silence. Watch how hard everyone works to avoid it. The screen fills every empty second. The earbuds go in the moment you're alone. The background noise runs in the empty house. There is always something playing, scrolling, pinging, talking. And we tell ourselves it's for entertainment, for company, for staying informed. But look closer at the reflex, the near panic reach for the phone the instant a quiet moment opens up. That is not appetite, that is avoidance. The 11th brutal truth is this: the constant noise is an escape, and whatever you are escaping has power over you, precisely because you will not turn and face it. The Stoics practice deliberate silence, not as punishment, as training. They would withdraw into stillness on purpose to learn to be with themselves without needing distraction, because they understood a hard thing about human beings. The person who cannot stand their own silence is a person who has not yet met themselves. And a person who has not met themselves can be led anywhere, sold anything, manipulated by anyone who offers enough noise to drown out the questions underneath. Because that's what the noise is really covering, not boredom, the questions. Am I living the right life? Am I becoming someone I respect? What is this quiet ache I feel when everything finally goes still? Those questions live in the silence, and they are the most important questions you will ever ask, which is exactly why the mind runs from them into any distraction it can find. It is easier to consume 1,000 strangers' thoughts than to sit for 10 minutes with your own. But everything you actually need to hear is on the other side of that silence. Your real priorities, which get buried under the noise of everyone else's. The truth about a situation you've been avoiding, which you already know the moment the distractions stop. The quiet voice of your own conscience, your own longing, your own direction, which cannot compete with the feet but speaks clearly the instant the feet goes dark. So do the thing almost no one is willing to do. Turn it off. Sit down. Breathe. Let the silence come, and let it be uncomfortable, because it will be at first. Don't reach for the phone. Don't feel it. Just stay and watch what surfaces when the noise finally stops. Whatever rises up in that stillness, that is the thing that has been waiting for your attention, buried under years of static. That is the thing that actually needs you, and you will never hear it as long as you are afraid of the silence that carries it. The 12th truth is the last, and in some ways the most powerful, because it removes your final hiding place. You already have everything you need to begin. There is a story that weakness loves to tell, and it is seductive, because it sounds so reasonable. When I have more money, when things settle down, when I've healed a little more, when I finally feel ready, then I'll begin, then I'll change, then I'll live the life I keep imagining. It is the most patient lie in the world, because it never has to deliver. It just keeps moving the starting line one more season into the future, forever. The 12th brutal truth is this: you will never feel ready. The perfect preparation you're waiting for is the grandest procrastination of all, dressed up as responsibility so that you can respect yourself while you avoid your life. Readiness is not a feeling that arrives before you act. It is a thing that is built, in retrospect, by acting. You do the thing unready, and the readiness is the residue the doing leaves behind. It was always going to be that way around. Everyone who ever did anything that mattered did it before they felt ready, with their doubts fully intact, terrified, and moving anyway. Look at the life of the man whose journal we've returned to all night. Marcus Aurelius did not govern a peaceful, prosperous empire from a position of calm and abundance. He ruled through war on the frontier, year after brutal year, sleeping in military camps far from home. He ruled through a plague that emptied cities and may in the end have taken him. He buried child after child. His own body was frail and sick for much of his reign. Betrayal circled him, even from men he had trusted. And it was in those conditions, not despite them but inside them, that he wrote the most serene and enduring meditations on how to live that the world has ever kept. He did not wait for ideal conditions to become wise. There were no ideal conditions. There never are. He chose to be wise in the conditions he had. That is the whole secret, and it is available to you tonight, exactly as it was to him. Because look at what you actually have, right now, in this moment. A body that is breathing, a mind that can think and choose and reflect on its own thinking, which is a stranger and rarer gift than you've ever paused to appreciate. A single decision available to you that no circumstance can take away. That is not enough. That is the same raw material every great soul in history started with. The emperor and the slave began with the same two things you have: their judgments and their actions. And so do you. The Stoic does not wait for the right moment. The Stoic makes the present moment right by the force of their own character poured into it. The right time was never coming. This, the ordinary, imperfect, Unready now is the only material you will ever be given, and it is enough. It was always enough. You were always enough. The only thing you were ever missing was the decision to begin before you felt ready. So begin. Before we close, one last gift from the Emperor's Journal. When the weight of it all pressed it down on him, Marcus Aurelius practiced something he called the view from above. He would rise, in his mind, up and away from himself. He would see his own body small in his own room. Then the whole palace. Then the city of Rome, its roofs and its crowds and its endless urgent noise shrinking beneath him. Then the whole of Italy, the sea, the turning earth, the vast dark reach of time itself, the countless generations that came before him and the countless that would come after, all the empires that had risen and crumbled into dust, all the people who had once been as certain of their troubles as he was of his. And from that height, he looked back down at the thing that had been consuming him, the insult, the betrayal, the fear, the problem that had filled his entire sky a moment ago. And from up there, it was small, not erased, not denied, but returned to its true size. One brief event, in one brief life, on one small world, in an ocean of time so vast that the mind cannot hold it. Try it, the next time something threatens to swallow you whole. Rise up, look down. Ask how much this will matter in a year, in 10, in 100, when everyone now alive, including you, is gone and forgotten and at peace. Most of what torments you cannot survive that altitude. It was only ever large because you were standing too close. 12 truths, 12 mirrors. Some of them reflected something you already knew, somewhere underneath, and had simply stopped letting yourself see. Others showed you something you'd have preferred to keep hidden, even from yourself. That discomfort you may be feeling right now is not a sign that something went wrong. It is the exact opposite. It is the feeling of the truth landing in a place that had gone numb. It is the ache of something waking up. That is what Stoicism is. It is not comfortable, it is true. And the truth, even when it wounds, is always to be preferred over the flattering lie that keeps you small. The lie feels better tonight. The truth serves you for the rest of your life. You came here, whether you knew it or not, for the truth, and now you have it. You made it all the way to the end of this. Most people won't. That alone says something about who you are, or perhaps more accurately, about who you are deciding to become. Because there is a difference, always, between the person you have been and the person you are capable of being. And that difference is not fixed. It is not your fate, sealed by your past, by what was done to you, by what you've done. It is a decision, made once, and then made again, and then again, on 10,000 ordinary days. The Stoics did not believe people were born strong or born weak. They rejected that idea completely. They believed strength was built, forged, constructed one choice at a time, one small refusal of weakness at a time, in the quiet moments no one sees, which means the past has no authority to decide your future. Your history is not your sentence. It is only your starting point. And from any starting point, on any given day, a person can begin to turn. You do not have to fix everything tonight. That's another trap, the demand that change be total and immediate, which is really just a sophisticated excuse to never start at all. You don't need to become a different person by morning. You only need to do one thing, now. Write in the comments below the following words. Not as a favor to this channel. The algorithm is not the point, and you owe it nothing. Write it as a signal to yourself, as a line drawn in your own hand between who you have been and who you are choosing from this moment to become. Write it for the only judge whose verdict has ever actually mattered. You. Write this. I choose to govern my mind. I will no longer be a slave to what I cannot control. Those words are yours now. They are a starting point, not a finish line. A single first vote for the person the last hour has been describing. Say them out loud if you're alone. Feel how they sit in your chest. And then, tomorrow, in one small moment, live them. Not all of them, not perfectly, just once. That is how it begins. That is the only way it has ever begun for anyone. The shadow is not your enemy. Remember that. The shadow is the place where wisdom grows, away from the noise, away from the endless need for approval, away from the glare of a world that profits from your distraction and your smallness. It is here, in the quiet and the dark, that a person finally hears themselves and finally begins to build the one thing no one can ever take away: a mind that governs itself. Welcome to Shadow and Wisdom. Until the next one, walk in the shadow without fear.